Every so often the Fenian spirit rises in the youth of Ireland, and a resistance is formed. As soon as this resistance gains some momentum, the Irish Republican Brotherhood emerges from its swamp to claim ownership of it. This is the modus operandi of the Freemasonic splinter group assigned to moderate the revolutionary spirit of the Irish. This has happened several times in the past 20 years, and I have reason to believe it's happening again now that this generation's resistance is finding its feet. For my warning to make sense, let me establish a little context. Let's take a look at our nation's flag, rather the flag of the Free State government and post-colonial history of the United Kingdom. We're taught this basic bitch story in school about the tricolour. Do you remember that one? Green for the Catholics, orange for the Loyalist Protestants, and white in the middle resembling peace between the two. On what planet does that even make sense? If that should be a flag of anywhere, it should be of the north of Ireland, because the south doesn't even have Loyalists in it. And even if it were the flag of the north, it still wouldn't make sense, as there hasn't been peace between these two peoples, and the Good Friday Agreement is turning out to be a brief armistice. Here's a better explanation of what at first appears to be a basic bitch flag, but is really an esoteric one. The United Kingdom packed it in, starting with the American Revolution in the late 1700s. It became apparent that the external hegemon was becoming less viable in a world that was learning liberal ideals, and it was time to draw back the tentacles closer to home. But quitting the colonies altogether would be suicide for Britain's economy, so they left their banks and Freemason spy networks behind to recolonize the post-revolutionary countries, all to be commanded from the City of London. This operation has been demonstrably successful, as you can track the majority of world finance back through the City of London, and with the recent 300th anniversary extravaganza of the Freemasons, we know exactly who they work for, as the keynote speech included a reaffirmation of the Order's loyalty to the Queen. Ireland is no exception to this post-colonial enterprise. Focusing mainly on the Masonic angle, we actually have two offshoots of the Order here in Ireland, the Orange Order and the Irish Republican Brotherhood. We can discuss whether the IRB were initially formed by Masons or whether it was infiltrated and modelled after Freemasonry, but these two organisations are facsimiles of the original order. They control who rises to the top of their respective societies and how their military wings function. Between those two managerial forces, the historical struggle between the native Irish and the loyalist colonists is played out like a pantomime. In the case of the Free State, the IRB merely regulates the indomitable Fenian spirit that's destined to rise almost every generation in response to our post-colonial condition, acting as a safety valve as our sovereignty and racial integrity is sold from out under us. Now let's consider our tricolour again, at the risk of being lynched by my fellow Irishmen for suggesting that it isn't the symbol of our independence and national spirit. It's patently Masonic. The IRB, the Orange Order, the mysterious white men in the middle moderating the interaction of the two. Who are these white men? Could they be the Queen's Masons themselves, or perhaps the long-corrupted Druidic order? The answer to this question is immaterial to this essay, and would require a deep dive into what many would consider conspiracy theory, not to mention I simply don't know, nor do I want to give the impression that I do know. Let's bring our focus back to Wednesday, February 13th of 2009. After Gemma O'Doherty and friends blockaded Google HQ in Dublin in response to continued censorship, she took to the air with yet another friend of hers by the name of Vincent Byrne. I don't know who this man is in terms of who he's involved with and on what level, but he's not an honourable man. His presence anywhere should be a cause for alarm. Circa 2009, a Freeman on the land style community named Tierna Sore had been on the scene for about a year. By then they had a community radio stream, and Vincent Byrne naturally filled the void of the lead radio presenter. This position and his participation in real-life meetups earned him an administrative position on the website. When Vincent Byrne was well established, he brought on an older gentleman whom he introduced as a good friend of his and the president of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, or more accurately, the Grand Master of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, Billy Maguire. Along with spurious esoteric ramblings, Mr. Maguire touted a great mystical ritual to be held in Dublin at the Mansion House every January, involving the turning of a seal or some other such nonsense which conferred the sovereignty of the Free State and blah 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 blah. Upon hearing the rebroadcast of Mr. Maguire's appearance, I decided to raise the alarm, admittedly not in the most mature way, simply by leaving a one-line statement in the forum, "Billy Maguire is full of shit." I went to bed that night thinking nothing of it, that maybe it would draw some criticism for being crude, but at least get people talking about the legitimacy of this man's claims and what he wanted us to believe and do. But upon logging in the following day, I found my user group had been modified along with several of my forum posts to make me out to be a Satanist or something like that, as well as private messages from Vincent Byrne and co. to the effect of, "How dare you?" Suffice to say, everything came out in the wash about 2 years later, but the infamous name of number 6, my handle on that website, never fully recovered. If you're at all interested in the details of this, the founder of Tyrannosaur addressed the infiltration in a 2-hour and 47-minute podcast, which I'll link below. Watch the words and actions of Vincent Byrne very closely, as he's now wormed his way into our movement. Like many who have been exposed in this and other truth movements, he has a history of lies, deception, distortion, and pilfering of funds. I'm not a person to hold a grudge for more than a few years or decide that another man is beyond redemption, but for now he should be considered guilty until proven innocent. If anyone out there is taking this seriously, please consider contacting Gemma O'Doherty yourself and bringing her attention to this material. Tell her there's a snake in the garden.